Hi, everyone. Thank you for coming to our final installment of the Advocacy Series webinar. Today, we have a presentation on victim services from Simran, who is a child and youth victim services worker with Cameray Child and Family Services. So with that, I'm just going to turn it over to Simran.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for attending. My name is Simran, and I'm a victim support worker for children and youth, and I work out of Cameray Child and Family Services in Burnaby. And I'll explain a little bit about my program coming up, but I will go through what victim services is, the legislation that supports it, and a little bit about what I do. So I'll just get started, and hopefully everyone can see the PowerPoint presentation clearly, and just let us know if there's any issues there. Okay, so the Victims of Crime Act. This is the provincial legislation that's laid out to set the rights of victims. And when we say victims, it's a lot more than just someone that's experienced a crime. It's anyone that has witnessed a crime, or in some situations, even an immediate family member of someone who has experienced a crime. So there's sort of three levels of a victim, primary, secondary, and tertiary. And so the Act is, it highlights that anyone who has experienced a crime be treated fairly and with respect by all workers in the criminal justice system. And the main purpose of victim services is to make sure that victims receive the information that they have a right to. So we're there to sort of be that bridge and relay information, such as benefits, any financial assistance that they may be eligible for, and to explain how the criminal justice system works, and obviously their rights to privacy. So some of the information that I share with my clients as a victim services worker is the status of their police investigation, if they have reported the incident to police, if it has moved on from being investigated to police to a report being sent to Crown, and we see that it's going forward in the court system. I keep clients updated with court dates and what's happening in court, what they can expect in the coming months or sometimes even years, depending on how long that court case will take. And then the other thing that I think is super important that we keep our clients updated about is the information about the accused or offender while they're in the community and or in custody, just so that their safety is, because their safety is something that we always keep in mind, and we want to make sure that they know if the accused person is in custody or not, or what are the conditions that the accused has to follow, so that if any conditions are breached or any of the rules are broken, our client has the knowledge and information to know what to do in that situation. And then we also have a federal piece of legislation that helps outline how we support our victims. And so the Canadian Victim Bill of Rights has 4 categories, and we sort of have our programs in BC and programs in our community set up in a way so that these 4 categories are met. Our victims have a right to information, like we talked about. They have the right to protection, and so I'll talk a little bit more about the program called Victim Safety Unit, which is solely to make sure that victims get the information about the whereabouts of an accused person, or even someone that's been convicted of a crime, just so that they have the information about where this person is in custody, even down to the information about which correctional facility they're in, and when they're released, and if they're released, what do they look like now, so that our victims have the information for their security and privacy. We also have victims have the right to participation, and so one of the things that victim services workers help with is completing a victim impact statement, and this is something that happens once someone is found guilty or enters a guilty plea. So this is something that I help clients complete and present in front of the courts. And so something that can be presented through Crown and the judge, so they can just have it so that whatever they've completed, the judge reads to him or herself, or the Crown reads aloud, although victims have the right to express their views about their decision that affects their rights, so they can read it out loud themselves as well. And then the last thing is the right to seek restitution, and so we'll talk a little bit more about that later. So I wrote what do most community-based victim programs offer, but everything that's listed here is what my program at Cameray offers. And so emotional support, and also we provide resources and referrals to various community agencies such as counseling. And so I say emotional support, but that could be that could just be like a phone call, but clients will need more information and more support, and so we'll make sure they get connected with the right community agencies. Assisting with safety planning is something that I do a lot with youth that have experienced either a sexual assault or something in the community, such as a robbery. I have a few clients that had their cell phone stolen, and so we just talk about ways to keep themselves safe and what are some habits they can incorporate into their daily life to just make things hopefully smoother in the future. And I do take a lot of time to explain the criminal justice system process and the roles within, just because we talk about the legal system with words that might not have any meaning to these youth. And so I just want to make sure that they understand, even if it's at the simplest level, of how it all works. And they're going to meet so many different professionals through their journey, from the time that a crime has been reported to the day that we potentially hear about sentencing. And so I just want to make sure that they're informed about who's all involved. In terms of providing up-to-date information about the investigation, I think that's something that victim support workers kind of bridge together, just because there's rights of the victim and then there's rights of the accused, and there's there's a bit of a balancing act that needs to be done. And so to provide information that the victim has rights to, and to redact any information that would infringe upon the accused's rights. Moving on, victim services programs often support clients with justice-related forms and applications. We talked a little bit about what a victim impact statement is, but we'll talk more so in detail about CVAP and a victim impact statement in the coming slides. One of my favorite things to do in my job is to help prepare young victims and witnesses for court. I say it's my favorite because it's the most challenging part of my job, and to have a young person come to me feeling super anxious and nervous about testifying in court, I sort of take that as a challenge to make it so that they're super prepared and feel empowered and are able to do this to the best of their ability. We do have multiple testimonial accommodations for young persons, and so that's something that I also talk about with my clients. And one of the most, I think, helpful parts of my job is that I accompany the young people to all court-related meetings. So that could be meeting with Crown, especially trial on the day of, whether that be my client testifying from within the courtroom. I have the option to sit right beside them, or if they opt for a CCTV testimony, which is like a Skype sort of setup from a different room, so that they don't have to see the accused person, I also accompany them to those testimonial accommodations. So I kind of went over my program, which is a community-based program, but I do want to sort of differentiate the different victim services programs that are out there. So we do have police-based victim services programs, and so Each municipal police department has a victim services program. RCMP have their victim services programs. And so the difference between what a community-based program does and what police-based does is that police-based victim services workers are usually on call and they're able to provide more crisis intervention. They may be present on the day or within the hour of a crime having been committed and an incident occurring. They are able to provide practical assistance on the day of or a couple of days leading after the incident. And eventually, once they've done sort of the crisis intervention or the first aid, had done their first responses, then they're able to refer to the appropriate community-based victim services program. So if that's a victim who is coming out of a domestic violence situation, they can ensure that she's connected with the right community-based program. So if there's any language barriers, they'll make sure that they can connect them to a victim services program that has a worker that speaks the same language so that they're able to provide the best service. Or if it's a young person, they're able to connect them with my program, or depending on the city, they may have a different victim services program. So the community, the police-based and community-based work collaboratively over the course of the file, but we do slightly have different expertise. And so I want to talk a little bit about the different ways that someone can get connected with victim services. This on the right side here, you can see a referral form, and this is what the Cameray Child and Youth Victim Support Services Program referral form looks like. And so because my program is solely for children and youth, the crime does need to be reported to police. I don't have that, I call it a luxury, but I don't have the ability to assist clients with third-party reporting, because anytime I hear about a young person being wronged or having a crime committed against them, I have a duty to report that. And so there is a little bit of a gray area in terms of the age of the client. So if it's somebody that is a mature minor and they're telling me that an incident happened away from home, so there's no concern about safety in their home, but an incident has happened, depending on risk or worry of that happening again, I could potentially not have to report that to MCFD or the police, but it's something that I would have to discuss with my supervisor and coordinator to make sure that I'm not doing something wrong, or that I'm not following with my duty report. And so for the most part, anytime a referral comes into me or anytime I am helping out a client, the incident has been reported to the police. And so self-referral is an option for my program, although most of the clients that I see are sent to me from either Burnaby RCMP or New West Police Department, because those are the two areas that my program is mandated to serve. And so reporting crime to police can be intimidating for young people. It can be scary and overwhelming. Sometimes youth feel that it may cause more harm than good because they don't want their parents finding out, or they don't want a situation where the accused person is in the home or is somebody that they associate with to be taken away or to have to go to jail. So there's a lot of different situations. Not everything is always very clear cut where, you know, this is the bad person. It is very complicated. And so we do have the option of third-party reporting for victims of sexual offenses that are older than 19. So that's not something that I have experienced or that I have worked with, but it is an option out there. And so I just wanted to add that into my PowerPoint so that anyone watching this is aware. And so the question does come up about how can I get help confidentially right away if I live with a perpetrator without involving police. That's something where I would suggest you reach out to Victim Link, which is a toll-free line that's 24/7. You can ask any questions confidentially, and you can get information without having to involve police. And so that's a great first step for anyone that's watching this that is unsure about how to proceed. And so there are some clients that come to me, or sometimes I get referred a client where they're not even sure what's happened is a crime or not, and they describe it as stupid coming to the police because they're not even sure if that's the right thing to do. And so I would suggest contacting Victim Link because that is a great way to sort of figure out your next steps. And so for my program, like we talked about earlier, it serves the city of Burnaby and New West. And so I can explain a little bit more about how we're mandated. And so CVSS, which is the acronym for my program, is mandated to provide support to children and youth under 19 who are victims or witnesses of crime, and along with their non-offending family members. And so that part's included in there because I do get a lot of files for children where their dad is often the accused person and they are now living with mom and their father is not allowed to contact them. And so I'm not in that situation able to connect with their father just because they are the offending family member, and I work primarily with the mom and the children. So the referrals that come into my program need to meet one of the following criteria, and it is quite flexible. So I often do get clients that are all over the Lower Mainland, but for the main part, anyone residing in Burnaby or New West, if the crime has taken place in Burnaby or New West and has been reported to Burnaby RCMP or the New West Police Department. And I will also take on the file if the court proceedings are taking place in New West or Burnaby, but the client can be living in Vancouver, they can be living in Surrey. I've had clients living out in Chilliwack, and so as long as there is a connection to Burnaby or New West, I can be involved. And my program can be involved at any stage of the legal process. And so I've had a variety of situations arise where I have a client that's now living in Burnaby, but the crime and the court case are all happening in a different province. And so I've had clients testify in Halifax, I've had clients testify in Ontario via CCTV, which is the camera, which is sort of a Skype setup. And so they're doing that from here, and because they live in Burnaby, I'm able to support them through that process, and they're able to testify for a trial that's happening on the other side of the country. And so that is, I think, one of the more fortunate things about my program. It's super flexible, and I try and help as anyone that tries to get connected with the program. I try and make sure that I can provide support, or if I'm not able to connect them to the right person or the right program. And so just to kind of outline what my caseload is like and the people that I work with. And so majority of my clients are female. I do have a wide range of clients, even though my program assists youth up till 19. If I get a referral at 19, I will hang on to that file until the case has been concluded. And so I do have a 21-year on my caseload. And normally a file that I have averages maybe 6 months to a year, but there are a few files where there are the court cases are being dragged on for a lot longer, and I do hang on to the files for about 3 to 4 years. And so that's kind of the level of caseload I have right now. And the trends that I often see are there have been quite a few sexual assaults and historical sexual assaults reported in the last little while. I've been at this job for now 3 years, and so I caught the the wave of the Me Too movement, and so there were quite a few reports since then, and I've seen an increase in where the accused and the victim are young females, and so this has been happening a lot in schools and high schools, and so these are the trends that I've seen in the last 8 months or so, and I think it will definitely be changing due to COVID and how we're all functioning now, but I will keep everyone updated on what changes. Okay, and so these are some of the resources that I think are at the top of the list when it comes to a person that is a victim of crime or trauma. Victim Link is probably the best first step. It's a toll-free line. They have multiple languages, and it's available across BC and the Yukon, and you can call them with any question, and they'll sort of direct you towards whether this is something you can report or you do want to report to police. Where can you get help? They can direct you, they'll probably direct you to your local police-based victim services program first, but there are many options, and so they'll be able to help you organize your thoughts. The second program that I think is at the top of the list is the Crime Victim Assistance Program, and so this is available for primary victims, immediate family members, or anyone that has witnessed a crime and is having a tough time cope with it. And so it provides financial benefits to offset any losses that have been occurred. So this could be things like counseling, it could be medical expenses, prescription services, things that you've had to pay for as a result of the crime. So there are dental services if you were a victim of a physical assault and somebody punched you and broke your tooth and you had to pay to get your tooth fixed, or if they broke your glasses. So any financial losses that have occurred as a result of a crime, CVAP will help reimburse you, and so we'll get into detail about that program in the next couple of slides, but that's another great resource available for those who are a victim of a crime. And the Victim Safety Unit, it's kind of written in the name. Their goal is safety, and so anyone that has reported a crime and is worried about their safety, you can register for this program, and they'll keep you updated and give you ongoing information about the accused or offenders, so that you have the knowledge, and so you have the power to do what's best for you. And so the Crime Victim Assistance Program application, this is kind of what it looks like. I've taken pictures of the first page and put them on this slide, but this program is available to the public. It's online. You can access a PDF document that you can fill out and email to them, and then they'll send you the results. And so this is a program that takes an application and gives you sort of a verdict, or it adjudicates your application. They'll take in a lot of information about the crime and if it's been reported, if there has been a court case, have you had to testify. It'll take into account how the crime has impacted you. So there is a section where you complete a paragraph about how this crime has taken a toll on you, and then they're able to sort of assess how many counseling sessions would you need. Is this something where you've had to stop working? Have you lost wages due to not being able to attend work? Have you had to move because you're worried for your safety, and how much were your moving costs? And so they take all that information, and they sort of judge what is needed to support a victim. And so there have been applications that are for self-defense classes. So somebody's actually sent in an application with the receipt attached for self-defense classes that they took, because as a result of the crime or the incident, that is what they needed to do to sort of feel safe again, or to feel empowered and equipped, and they were approved for that. And so it's also a very flexible program, and it's definitely something that I recommend clients fill out, and or at least connect with to see what their options are. And the biggest advantage of completing this application, especially for counseling services, is that the sessions that are granted do not have an expiration. They're quite flexible with when somebody is ready to use those counseling sessions. And so if I have young clients who may not understand the severity of the crime that was committed against them, parents usually complete the CVAP application, so that is an option for the kids once they're a little bit older, or once they, or if they sort of have any underlying trauma that presents later on. And so they do, you can see on the right side here, they have a big section just about medical information. So they want to speak to your family doctor, they want to speak to any other professionals, and confirm that everything that's in the application lines up and makes sense. They do call each professional that's listed on there, just to make sure that that everything's accurate before they grant financial assistance or counseling sessions, and reimburse any costs. And here's a list on the left here. You can see that this is part of the application, but this is all that CVAP is able to assist with. I will say that the exception to completing a CVAP application is any crime that occurs that involves like vehicles. So if it's also an ICBC claim, CVAP is much less likely to approve, because that is something that ICBC would be paying for. And so there are always one-offs, but that's just the one that pops up into my mind right now. Court Services Online. This is probably one of my favorite resources, because it's super helpful for me to keep my clients updated when their file is moving through the court system. And so this is something that is available for anyone to use. It's a website, cso.org, I believe cso.bc.ca. So the name on the right that you see there is just a completely random name that I have researched. It's not any of my clients. And so you can see sort of there's a lot of information in that box. And so if my clients would like, I can sort of decipher the information and keep them updated via text or email. But you can see each court appearance that's been scheduled, the reason for it, and the time and location. And so this, you can see, is if you start at the bottom, that's the earliest court date. And so you see a lot of CLC, which is consult legal counsel, and clients have to wait months and months where there's really no update. And then you can see that there's a trial scheduled where it says FT in September of 2015, when the incident happened over a year before that. And then you can see pre-sentencing report, which is what PSR stands for. And so each step of the way, as each court date is announced, I would sort of keep my client in the loop by explaining what's going on now and what we can expect. There are some clients that don't want to know unless there is a really big update. So I might not be connected with them each month. I might just, connect with them 6 months later, just to say, yep, trial is now scheduled, and we might want to start thinking about court preparation a month or two before that date. But this is a great resource for anyone that's out there. And so you could actually look up the names of your friends and family if you really want. Everyone's got speeding tickets, and you can actually see if they've disputed a speeding ticket, because that court date will pop up under their name as well. So it's fun. It can also potentially cause problems, so maybe don't look up everyone, but just explore as you'd like. Safety planning and conditions. And so conditions are what the judge or the police officer recommend for somebody somebody that's out on bail or has been released. These are just an example. I tried to cut out any information that doesn't need to be listed on here, but this is usually what they look like. The basics are to not possess a weapon, to not have access to certain locations, so any public parks or swimming areas where a person under the age of, this one says 18, but sometimes it can be 16, daycare centers, schools, playgrounds, just depending on what type of crime it was. And so this was a sexual assault incident, and they're outlined in like a very serious and strict way, but I just try to make sure that my clients understand that the accused person is not supposed to be contacting you directly or indirectly. So that can look like a phone call, voicemail, a letter through the mail. It can be telling your neighbor to tell you information. So no indirect or direct communication with you. And so I just make sure that they also have a copy with information that is relative to them, so that they're equipped with the knowledge. So some of the next steps after making sure that clients are connected with counseling resources and are aware of what the criminal justice system looks like, what they can expect, and answer any questions they might have about having reported to police. I sort of shift focus to the court piece, and so explaining what a subpoena is, talking about different testimonial accommodations that are available, especially to young people. So children and youth have testimonial accommodations available to them, which are to testify from a different room, to testify from within the courtroom and have a screen present so that they don't have to see anybody other than the judge and the lawyer asking them questions and their support person. Or they have the option of having a support person sit with them. And my favorite is that they can put in an application to have a support dog. And so there are a few court dogs that we have. There's a golden retriever, and then there's I think a black lab, and they are super cute. These dogs are actually Insta famous. They have their own Instagram pages. So if anyone's super curious, you can email me later and I'll let you know. These dogs support the children and youth and are super calming. And I've had 2 clients that have actually put in an application, and those were my favorite days at work. In terms of court preparation, we do a session a couple of weeks before having to attend anything to do with court, where we talk about the roles and the layout of a courtroom, questioning the difference between direct examination and cross-examination, and what to expect. And we do a little bit of a practice testimony where we talk about pizza or burgers, but it just sort of helps the client understand the question and answer flow that they should expect from within when they're testifying in a courtroom. And so then we go meet Crown and we get ready for trial, and we do all these things together. And so I am there for every step of the way. Court. And so there are some realities. This is something that is a super big challenge of my job, and I enjoy doing, but majority of my files don't get to this point. There's actually a small fraction of my files that actually get to the point of trial, and there are many reasons that doesn't happen. And it could be that a crime that was reported, charges were not approved. It could be that there wasn't enough information. It could be that the victim or witnesses did not want to comply. There could have been a stay of proceedings due to any administrative reasons, or we could have seen a guilty plea. And so now the biggest reason for all the confusion in court is COVID. We're seeing a lot of adjournments. We've actually added a special new reason for a court appearance, which is adjourned due to COVID. And so sometimes I check for my clients to see if there's any updates. All it says is adjourned due to COVID. And so that can be really frustrating right now. Like I said, court is a very difficult time, but most of my clients that have testified, they usually feel a sense of healing or power afterwards. The option the opportunity to be able to say your piece and tell your version to everybody, and especially to the judge, who is almost 99.9% of the time super respectful and eager to hear what you have to say. It can provide a sense of healing for my clients, and so I think that's the silver lining in that whole situation, even if the outcome of a case is not what we want it to be. And so that's the thing about verdicts. Sometimes the verdict is not what is expected, but the whole process can be healing, and that's sort of what I think is the biggest part of my job, to make sure that a person that's involved with the criminal justice system feels engaged and feels like their piece was heard. And if that means that the verdict is not what they expected, I want to make sure that they understand why it was that verdict that we received, and why that was the result of the case, and to ensure that my clients don't feel like they weren't believed or it was their fault. I don't want them to have a sense of guilt in any way. I want to make sure that they felt supported, and that they know that they did the best that they could. And so it's a very tough job, but it's one that I truly enjoy. Oh yes, so my favorite part in terms of court, my favorite part is the victim impact statement, which means that the accused person has pleaded guilty or been found guilty, and this is an opportunity for them to say their piece and say how their life has been impacted due to the crime or the incident. They can outline the emotional impact, physical, economic, and their fear for security. And so they can write a letter, they can write a poem, they can draw something, they can express their emotion in any way that suits them. And this is something that will be addressed in the courtroom. So the defense lawyer gets a copy, the Crown gets a copy, the accused person will be reading this or hearing this, the judge will be reading this. My clients or victims of crime also have the opportunity to stand up in court and read this out loud themselves. And so it's a moment that I think can be extremely healing. So far, I haven't had a client that's wanted to read it out themselves, just because I think that is super nerve-wracking, but I've had a few clients that have had Crown read it out loud, and I know that everyone in that room, it feels something special, especially when the judge that's heard this victim impact statement, and they actually reference it when they release their decision. So when they render their judgment, they resort back to the victim said this and the victim felt this, and therefore I am suggesting this sentence, or the fact that the victim is heard, especially by the judge, which is like the highest level I feel in the criminal justice system. It is super, super nice to see, and so that's why it's my favorite part. It's everything sort of comes complete circle when we get to this point. And so this is the form that they give you, and so clients don't actually have to use this, but they do just sign off at the bottom of this, and they can submit something that's typed up on a Word document, or something that's drawn on a canvas or a drawing book. And so this is just what they send you in the mail, and that's something I prepare my clients for, because it can be a little discouraging when you get a little stapled document and you're just supposed to outline all your feelings in that, but this is sort of just a template that they give you. Okay, so victim services in a nutshell. Victim services workers, like I said, are the people that help connect the criminal justice system, help connect victims to the criminal justice system, and help them navigate the different channels, the different situations, starting off with police, finishing with the court system, and everything in between. And if someone were to ask, what is it like to access victim services? I think I can't say easy, but I can hopefully say that it's smooth, because they're your friend through the process. Everything that happens is in reference to your rights that were talked about earlier in the legislation pieces, so VOCA or Victims' Bill of Rights. And so everything that happens is in accordance with that, which is supposed to be highlighting your rights and telling your side of the story. And so hopefully that's what it's like for everyone, because that's what I try to do in my program, and help them navigate all the confusion. And so we do face challenges. We are sometimes limited in the resources that we have, but we do our best to make sure that the clients get the information as quickly as possible and are involved just as much, because we have to balance the rights of the accused, and we have to balance the rights of the victims, and that can be a challenge. And some of the newest challenges that we're facing are because of COVID, but we're gonna hopefully improve the way we do things. I can share that I, in my program, has received a little bit of funding since COVID has started to get all the right tech and all the newest tech to be able to virtual meetings and virtual sessions with clients and communicate online, just so that we can replace the connection that we would have in person and move it online. And hopefully that bridges the gap that we've seen in the last few months. But that's Victim Services in a nutshell for now. And I just wanted to add a slide on here that talked about all the different resources in the presentation. So BC 211, a great way to find resources in your area. If you go on that website, they have all the different categories, whether it be housing services that you're looking for, mental health services, counseling, and then there is also a tab on there for victim services. And so that's probably at the top of the list. And the CVAP program, Victim Safety Unit, and Cameray. So those are all on there for anyone. And my email address is also on there under Cameray Child and Family Services. And so if anyone has any questions or concerns, they can email me, and I will do my best to give you all the information. And now we're just going to move on to question and answers. So Paige, if you want to run this section, this part, feel free to take over.
Sure, let me just pull up the questions here. Okay, so we have one question that we received from a youth worker on our team, and that is, my big brother hits me when my parents are not around. Does this count as abuse?
Okay, so that question would just make me want many more questions, and so I would want to know what sort of abuse is this, sort of the age and size difference between the two siblings. And I would always recommend that if you're unsure about what's going on and if this warrants a criminal report, to connect with Victim Link and or BC 211. And if you are much younger and you don't feel like you can do that, I would suggest speaking to an adult, like a teacher or a coach or anyone that or a parent that you feel like you can connect with, anyone that's older, just because I wouldn't want anyone to downplay the situation. I would say reach out and see if there is help and support out there for you.
Great, thank you. And we just have one more question, which is, I was mugged and lost my wallet and phone. How do I report this crime?
So for a situation where there may not be any immediate risk or concern, where you're no longer in danger, and say, that this incident happened and now you're at home, I would call the non-emergency line for the city that you're in and report that. Because even if there may be, you feel like there's no hope and then you're going to get your wallet back, it could be that, say this happened at a SkyTrain or wherever this happened, that this is actually a trend, and you want to make sure that it's documented and that the police are aware that this is happening. So I would report it to the non-emergency line, and I think that's a great first step, just so that everything's documented, and if this is a trend, it shows up in the statistics or the crime reports for your local police department. And maybe that means that they're gonna increase patrols in that area and make sure that this doesn't happen to anyone else. But I would definitely report it to police on the non-emerge line if there's no danger to you at that time.
Thank you so much, Simran. I think that's all the questions we had. The rest were answered throughout your wonderful presentation.
Awesome. Thank you.
Great. Well, thank you so much. And thank you to everyone who came today. This concludes our advocacy series webinar. The webinar links will be posted to the Foundry Virtual website in the coming weeks. So be able to access every recorded version we have of every installment of the advocacy series thus far. So thank you everyone for coming, and a big thank you to Simran for giving this great presentation on victim services.
Thank you for having me, and thank you everyone.
Bye everyone.